stories untold.
Hello, everybody. I'm Scott, and this is
Brad Heftegaub.
Brad, and we're going to do a little bit of a AI coding experiment to see how this goes. If we can get the robot to do some work from us, and not from us, but for us, and
Yeah.
see what we can figure out. Let's do it, Brad.
All right, cool. So, you and I, when we sort of launched this little ragtag podcast, we just threw up a quick website, and honestly, I just threw it together from some random open source blogging kit that was up on the internet. And so, this is actually like a local dev version of our website, but it basically looks like this right now.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things about it is we didn't actually have an episodes page. We kind of just have this link in the episodes, just like boom, redirects to our hosting provider for our
Mm-hmm.
podcast. So you and I were like, well, we should definitely make that work better. And
Yeah,
so we talked to Michael Natkin earlier, and we were like, yeah, I mean, this stuff works. So let's just like throw this project at some generative AI and see what it comes up with. What do you think about that plan?
that's exactly what I'd like to try out.
Right. So here's our little website code base. And this is Cursor. We talked a little bit about that with Michael. You can see our code base is really simple. The README just says it's based on this thing, and it's got some, our about page or whatever. There's our about page, right? Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so let's just ask Cursor. We're gonna in agent mode. We're just gonna ask it like, what do you know about this? And you can tell I told it to disregard anything it knows about this project. So, um, tell me what you know about this code. And so here it goes. So he's gonna start by examining the structure. He sees a README file. He's gonna look at the code structure. I don't know why I'm anthropomorphizing him as a male, but this thing, Cursor, Claude. I
It.
guess it's
It's an
Claude
it.
Sonnet. So it. So here you go. It's kind of checking everything out, reading about how it's deployed, and here he goes. Website for the podcast How Many CTOs Pod, built with SvelteKit and the SvelteKit static blog template as a foundation. Site appears to be static blog style website for showcasing podcast content. Framework SvelteKit, Markdown process, styling, SAS, web build tool, Vite, site structure, current implementation. Episodes currently doesn't display episodes directly. Instead, it redirects the visitors to the libsyn hosting page. All right.
Wow.
Deployment. The site is hosted on AWS as a static website at the domain howmanyctospod.com. And the build system includes generating a sitemap and optimizing images. That's what it figured out by just looking at the code.
It could tell exactly the thing we wanted to fix or
Exactly.
improve. Pretty
Exactly. So how
remarkable.
about we? What do you want to say to it? What should we tell it?
Um, well, we want to say can let's just talk about this first before you type it in
Yeah,
because this is
totally.
actually prompt engineering, right? And I
This is
have
prompt
this
engineering.
I'm developing this hypothesis about prompt engineering, which is it's pair programming is going to be incredibly pair prompt engineering. So you can talk about how exactly would we ask it, and
Yeah.
then it's the right thing. So I think we want to say, hey, instead of redirecting to the libsyn hosting page, can you go to that page, find the RSS feed, and then display the contents of that feed in some sort of attractive way
Yeah.
on this website,
Yeah, totally.
just
I
following the
think
styles of this website?
yeah, totally. I
Something
think
like
that's what
that?
we should say. Yeah, I think that's what we should tell it. Uh, I'm always polite, so please refactor the episodes page to directly embed the episode content from the RSS feed hosted on Libsyn. Um, I think we should just start with that. Maybe
Can I
tell
can I
me your
suggest one
plan.
one tweak?
Yeah,
Oh,
sure.
no,
Yeah,
keep on
what?
going.
No.
Well, you say directly embed the episode content, and up above where it describes it, it says it doesn't uh, display episodes directly. I wonder
Uh-huh.
if we use the same language that it uses, right? See, if you said refactor the episodes page to display episodes directly, right? I wonder
Dis-
if that'll help it know what we want
uh-huh.
it to do.
Yep. To display episodes directly on the site. Maybe get the episode details from
Okay, now this
the
is
RSS
important.
feed.
Do we need to tell it that we actually don't want it to be static? We want it to do this dynamically so that when the
Hmm.
RSS feed updates, that
Let's
it,
see if it figures that out. Like,
okay,
get
yeah,
the
okay.
and tell us tell me your plan. What do you think?
Tell me your plan before you do it.
Yeah. Well, tell me your plan and offer and
No, I don't think before you hit. Now this is cursor.sh, right?
yep. So this
Yeah,
is
we didn't
cursor.
say that earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, this is cursor,
Okay.
and it lets me in agent mode, and it's basically letting me pick different LLMs. It's currently selected Claude 3.7 Thinking, the agent version.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of the default one. I actually
Mm-hmm.
feel like this. Based on my experimentation with stuff in general, I feel like this is more than enough information for it to come back with a pretty good plan and implementation. So
Great.
I'm eager to just hit enter and let this thing go.
What's interesting is it's like writing a ticket
Yeah,
for an engineer.
totally.
Like you have to, write what you want.
Yeah, I mean we could tell it like um, follow the existing style of the website. We could say include a hero image at the top of the page.
Let's do it.
I feel like we're overthinking this. Let the
Fire,
robot do it.
fire the missiles.
All right, here we go. All right, let's see what it came up with. So, uh, understand the current structure. Let me examine. Hit red layout.svelte implementation plan. I'll create a client-side solution to fetch and display the RSS feed. So client-side, that's cool. It's not going to try to do anything server-side.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to fetch and display the RSS feed. Here's my step-by-step approach. Create a new page svelte file to replace the current page.md. Redirect. Set up RSS feed. Fetching the libsyn feed. Parse the XML, extract the episode data, display episodes in a clean, responsive layout matching the site style, include media player for each episode, handle loading and error states gracefully. Technical implementation, it's going to use Svelte's on mount lifecycle hook. It's going to fetch the RSS feed through a CORS proxy so that it doesn't have any CORS errors. It's going to parse the XML in the browser's DOM parser. It's going to format dates, description, media links. It's going to render the episodes with audio player and description. Components and styling, hero, title and podcast cover image matching the site's existing hero style, brief podcast description. For each episode, it'll do the date. Each episode card will include title, publication date, duration, description, audio player, link to the original episode. Um, Styling will match the site's existing color scheme and typography. Additional considerations ensure implementation works well on a static site, has good loading state, gracefully handle errors. What do you think of that plan?
I
Approved
think
for
it's a good
junior
plan.
engineer?
The one thing that surprised me was the media player. So
Oh,
like
really?
if you were writing a ticket for somebody to do this, and they did that, you'd say, well, you added a thing here that I didn't ask for in my ticket,
But don't you
right?
like that idea?
I'm not opposed to it. I'm just saying that was the thing that stood out to me, which is like scope creep, basically.
Scope creep, totally. I mean, every engineer likes to code, even the robotic ones.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, all right. Let's say, please offer an implementation. Please implement.
How much carbon do you think this is emitting right now?
I actually don't think it's emitting that much carbon right now. I think most of the carbon that's getting emitted is done every day when it's retraining it. They're just training. They're working on Claude 3.8. You know,
Hmm.
that's the real
That
cost of this.
the the primary training of the model is expensive.
It's the primary training of the model. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if um, this is interesting. So we're right down here. You can see in my terminal, I'm running the Vite debugger in practice, and so
Hmm.
it's the live site, and it uh, has created multiple because if there's a page.svelte and a page.md, it doesn't know what to do
Hmm.
with it.
Hmm.
Um, and so let's see what else is it doing. So it's gotten its page.svelte, it's added some new SEO stuff. It wants to add a date functions package. I'm fine with that.
Hmm.
Let's have it run that. Um, One thing that's interesting. Okay. Now it's removing the old
It's
page.md to
nice that
avoid.
it's nice that it installed something with a high vulnerability for you.
I don't know that might have actually been in something else I already had. I hadn't run a NPN audit on it for a while, so. But it is supporting. It is recommending to do that. But anyway, so now it basically implemented all those things and it's rerunning dev. So let's go ahead and see what
It was pretty
happened with our.
fast, right? It took 3 minutes.
All right, you ready? So this is the local build. You ready?
Well, hang on a second. No, no. Well, okay.
Oh, oh, didn't quite work.
What happened? I was going to say I
Uh,
wanted to look at the code first, but couldn't load the podcast episodes. Please try again or visit our libs insight. Well, that's interesting. Let's go
that
take a look
is.
at the. Does it give us? How about the the inspector? Does it give us any errors in the console?
Ah. Uh, Cannot read properties. Yeah. So we got a 404 error. So let's give it a couple. Let's tell it about these errors. Um, we got the following error, and we noticed in the console that we had the following errors. All right, so it sort of here's its assessment of, um, you can see its thought process. So the main error, this suggests that our DOM query is failing because an element we assumed there wasn't actually there. Looking around our code, specifically line 60, we're use element selector, but that element is null in some cases. The 404 from site manifest is unrelated to the podcast feed issue. So let's debug and fix these issues. And I think, yeah, yeah. So one thing that's kind of cool about Cursor is it'll actually do this like in the file that it's changing. It presents
Like as a
these
diff.
like diffs basically. Um, and so here it's offering its change. It's also noticing some TypeScript errors from the linter. Um, So it's fixing those. I probably could have given it my lint file, and it might have been a little bit smarter about not doing that, not making initial code have lint errors. But you can see it's kind of just working away here, fixing.
So here's an interesting thought. I have two interesting thoughts.
Mhm.
Actually, neither of them might be interesting at all. I just have two thoughts. The first is, you remember back in the olden times when we had to compile our code? And if it took too long to compile, you'd get up from your desk and you'd go get a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And then you'd start talking to someone. And then before you knew it, 45 minutes had passed.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a similar story here, which is I think to myself, oh, I should go get a cup of coffee. And then I go get a cup of coffee, and then I see Brad in the hallway, and I start talking to Brad about his cats because he's got a new
Hmm.
cat. And then, he asked me if I want to go over to such and such a person's desk to look at something cool he's working on. So that's a thought I had. It's a feeling I had. And the other thought I had, I really like to know every line of code that I'm working on.
Yeah.
I kind of come from the old school. I like to step through things with the debugger and really make sure I
Totally.
understand how it works kind of in every scenario. Um, maybe put different value, kind of a form of testing almost, putting different kinds of values in the debugger to see how it
Yeah.
behaves. And what I'm feeling like with this is, what is it doing? And I don't,
Well, we
it
gave
doesn't,
it a
like it's,
yeah, we gave it a lot. We just said, "Hey, go for it." Right? And this is all its
go for
code
it.
to do. This is all its code that it came up with. And I do a bunch of Svelte programming, so a bunch of this is something that I certainly can tell you from looking at this code what it's doing.
Yeah,
But it's fair that I literally just said, "Hey, just like let's see what it does without even checking its work, other than just testing it." Right?
that's
But yeah,
right.
you can see here that it wrote this function to fetch the podcast data. It gets it from our libsyn. Um, it redirects around a course proxy if for some reason that didn't work. It pulls out the parser, pulls out the data from it. It starts getting each podcast episode. Here's like this is invalid structure, or it's like, okay, here's the URL for the podcast image.
Hmm.
It starts then, you can see here, it starts to essentially create, um, well, this is reading out of the RSS feed,
Yep.
the image URL, sort of kind of creating these things. And then for each item in the RSS feed, it's going to start creating this
Hmm.
per so it's pushing the episode onto its episode list of the title, the description, the
Hmm.
date, etc. Um, it's getting the podcast info up here that comes from the RSS feed, and so now that function has basically created that podcast data.
Hmm.
And then down here is very this is Svelte. This is kind of Svelte the way Svelte code works. It's basically looks like HTML, but then it has these curly brackets that let you embed, the sort of client side processing in the
Hmm.
code.
Hmm.
And so you can see here, it's like if it's loading, it just shows the loading. Otherwise, it starts to put in the podcast data. And so this is another Sveltism here, where it's like these curly brackets basically are doing string replaces. Um,
Hmm.
Here's that error code we saw. Here's if there's no episodes, check back later. And then if it's got the episodes, then it just starts putting these episode cards in. It just loops through all the episodes, putting these cards in.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, we just went through it. We have a feel for the code now. I wonder, as an engineer, I feel a lot of attachment to the intimacy with the code. I don't know if that's unique to me, or if is that actually an important thing as an engineer to really know how it works.
I
I
mean,
don't know. But we're going
I
to
think
learn over
it's
the next 10 years. We're going to find out.
we're gonna learn, right? Or can you learn how it works by reading it like that? Like,
Yeah, that's right.
admittedly, I have some familiarity with sort of the Svelte, the way that Svelte works, and so my quick review of that is like, yeah, that's pretty much what I would have written, right? It's kind of like when we
Hmm.
talk to Michael about it. Like the senior engineer walks in and they have a plan. They know basically the code they're going to write,
Hmm.
and this thing's just writing the code on their behalf. But
Hmm.
let's see if it worked. Let's see if it fixed the bug. Let's go ahead and
Well,
pivot
yeah,
over. Oh, look at that. So this is this. There it is.
bad.
So here's our hero image at the top. Here's our little description. And this is our most recent episode, Building Trust and Authentic Connections.
Hmm.
All right. It's got
Our
the little
those show notes must be our show notes from the
those are our
podcast
show
feed.
notes from that episode. Here's our show notes from our episode with Marcelo,
Hmm.
little player.
Well, hit the player, see if it works.
Sure.
I guess it's probably going into your ears right now. We can't
It's
hear it on
going
the
to my
podcast.
ears. Yeah,
Yeah,
I guess we didn't.
yeah,
I
all
guess
right.
we didn't run the screen share in a way that will hear the audio. But
That's
yep, I
fine.
was hearing it.
That's cool. So you see where it says, so I have another task for it.
Yeah. All right.
Listen, okay, you saw that button that said listen on Libsyn.
Yeah.
Maybe we want to make it say listen on Spotify or Apple or something
Yeah.
like that.
Do we want listen on Libsyn at all, or we want to cut that out?
I don't think we want that at all.
Yeah. Please remove the listen on Libsyn and instead include links to Apple Podcast and Spotify.
What does the Android
What
ecosystem
do
use for
you
podcasts?
need? What do you need to know from me to uh, complete this task? I don't think it will. It seems like it needs to know the link to our Apple podcast uh, and our Spotify uh, podcast.
Easy enough. We can get those
Okay.
links.
All right. You got
I got
those
them
links
right
handy?
here.
Yeah.
I do have them handy. Where's my mouse? If I can find it. I can't find it where my mouse is appearing on the screen. For some reason, my mouse is not working. All right. Apple. Got it right here. I'm just going to drop this into, well, there's no chat here in
Yeah,
this
there it is.
way we
Over on the
record.
right.
Oh, it's over on the, yeah, okay. There's one. Let me get you the other. And I was asking, I don't know what the um, Android ecosystem uses for its podcast. You know?
I don't know.
Well, I guess Android listeners, if you could leave us a comment and let us know, we will ask the AI to update it for us. So I
All
think
right,
what's
here
going
we
to happen
go.
here is it's going to take us to the podcast page, not
I
necessarily the
We'll
episode
see.
actual
I
the link.
Let's see what it did. So it clearly replaced. Here we can see the diff. It's getting rid of the listen with uh
Yeah.
and so then it changed it to uh
Yes, it's taken to the
episode
show
link.
page.
Is it going to go to the show page?
Well, those
Yeah,
links that
that
I gave you were the show page links.
okay.
They were not the episode links. But that's probably okay.
Let's see. Those are the show page links. Can you link directly to the episodes? Ah, I see. It's really interesting. I like the so this is one of the things about the agentic models. They like
Hmm.
show you their thought process. So here it's
Yeah,
like, okay, link
which is
directly to the
good.
specific episodes. I need to use the episode information from the RSS feed. We already have the episode link, but we need to create specific links for Apple Podcasts. However, we don't have direct access to these episode IDs from the RSS feed. What we can do, we could check if the RSS feed includes an Apple or Spotify specific links. If not, try to construct the link using the episode information. If all else fails, provide a user friendly. So this will be really interesting if it's going to be able
Real
to figure out how to
interesting.
do this.
Hmm.
Okay, so it's going to add some hard coded to the Apple ID and the Spotify ID. Down here, uh, oh, look at the scope creep. It added back in the libsyn, even though we didn't tell it to do
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
All right, well let's see what we get if we accept all. So let's see what else changes it did. Uh, so it's oh actually it's added a fair amount. Okay, so we have um it's adding a iTunes ID and Spotify ID. It's got the Apple ID. It tries to get episode links. Okay. Try to access the episode specific ID available, otherwise fall back to the show page. Okay, so it's trying to. It says it's trying to basically add the iTunes ID. This looks like a good strategy. I have no idea exactly how. I actually don't know how Spotify and Apple, embed their episode IDs. So this is an example where this looks credible to me, but I don't know enough about how Spotify and Apple Podcasts manage episodes. So
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
kind of don't know if that's going to work, but it's plausible. Um, it's just added some more comments. Um, here's where it's getting the Spotify IDs out. Um, more on the episode, and then all right, let's go ahead. Let's see if it worked.
What's that review next file button?
Ah, that's a good question. This is the metadata about the episode. So this is like apparently I hadn't accepted the changes there. Um, all right, let's see. Oh, nope,
Oh no.
nope. We're getting an
Oh
error.
no.
What's going on there, buddy? All right, so it looks like
Server error.
we're getting a. Let's just give it this code.
Fix the error. It seems like AI coding should never have an error. Whenever it sees an error, it should just go fix it before you even. It should just be like, "Oh, I saw there was an error. I'm fixing it for you now. Just hang on."
Problem with the placement of the at const directive. In Svelte, at const declaration must be immediately children of the. There you go. All right. Thinks it has a fix.
Is this
Let's look at.
more fun than just coding it?
Well, apparently this is all about vibe coding.
What's vibe coding mean? I don't
That's
even know what
just
that
a new
means.
term that just got invented on the internet a couple weeks ago. It's like where you just sit back and just vibe with the AI and have it code for you. All right,
Hmm.
here's what it came up with.
Okay,
Do
what
we
happens when you click on the L? Listen to that guy
do we
right
believe?
there.
Let's see.
Love the icon they chose. That's pretty funny.
Page you're looking for cannot be found.
Boy. Okay,
All
what about
right.
Spotify?
It went to the show. It just went to the
So,
show.
so close. Close,
So
but no
close.
cigar.
And then, of course, it still has libsyn, but we didn't really want that.
Now, I understand technically why it was difficult for the AI to do that because
Yeah.
Apple and Spotify read in the RSS feed and assign it their own ID and their own structure.
Yep.
Totally get why technically it's hard to do that.
Yep.
But overall, it seems like a pretty simple kind of task.
Yeah, and that I tend to agree with you. I think that the thing that is interesting about it is that so I what I'm not sure of is Well, here you go. So you can see here we just did this a little bit, and you can see here that um, our so on Spotify, it's here's this random, not really GUID, but some kind of a you know unique identifier that's going to our show. And then when I click on the episode, it is another completely random identifier. Like,
Hmm.
where's that coming from? You know?
Right, it's part of the Spotify ecosystem. There's no
Yeah.
way for
Now,
the AI to
what's
know.
possible is that I wouldn't be surprised if there isn't an RSS feed for it. It could be that there's a second RSS feed that is the Spotify RSS feed.
Right, what
You know,
happens if you go to that show page?
right here.
Yeah, does that have a feed on it somewhere?
I don't see. Let's just ask our. Let's ask this. Let's ask
Yeah.
Claude if it
Why
knows.
are we doing work?
Let's see. Hold on a second. So, actually, let's do this. Um, so let's let's click on the uh. Okay. So how do we describe this problem to him? So this approach is not working on Spotify. We're just going to the show page. And Spotify episodes seem to have unique IDs for each episode. What is another strategy you can use? Is
Did I
there a
propose
yeah?
one modification to that?
Yeah, totally.
It says Spotify episodes seem to have unique IDs. I think conceptually what I'm trying to convey is Spotify issues their own unique IDs, right? So here's another question I thought to ask it.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it trying to write this? We're not the first people in the world that have wanted to put this links to a show
Yeah, totally.
on a website. That must exist out there somewhere. Here's a little npm thing or whatever, node package you can use for that.
Yeah, that's not a bad question as well. So it now it's just like yeah, it's just going further down the road of trying. This is, by the way, very similar to what Michael said. It's like if you once it gets locked on something
Mm-hmm.
and
Got to
it
start
kind
over.
of yeah, you kind of have to tell it to start over. Um, Look, I think here's what I think. We've been playing around with this for half an hour,
Mm-hmm.
and we went from clearly a a nothing of burger of our episodes page to that first cut where it just had the show notes and the player without the listen on, right?
It's fine.
Was pretty good. Was better than we had, and that was in
Mm-hmm.
the first 10 minutes of chatting with it.
Yeah.
And now we just hit this problem where um, it's definitely we could keep going down this road of asking it for more and more and more, and it's
Mm-hmm.
probably going to be stuck in that loop of kind of digging in harder about no, I'm going to somehow just go from your show URL to the episode,
Yeah, it's
you
not
know.
going to work.
And so this I think is a good example of what we were talking about with Michael, where it's like you have to know when to essentially fire the AI and start over on the thing you asked it to do. And I think that's where we landed here in half an hour of playing around with this thing.
Yeah. Well, that was fun.
Yeah, yeah.
And we'll pick this up next week.
This episode of How Many CTOs Does It Take podcast was edited by Saffron Eftigao. Our theme song was AI generated by Brad. Please follow us on all the social media platforms at How Many CTOs Pod. You can find us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, X, TikTok, and Patreon, or at our website at howmanyctospod.com. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe on the podcast platform of your choice. Thanks for listening.